And we are attempting to re-record this since the last one didn't work. So just going to try and make sure that this is working. Which I think it is now. Thank God. Okay. Beseder Gomer. Okay. So we got up to the conversation at the bottom of Tzadi Zayin Amud Aleph. the bottom of Tzadi Zayin Amud Aleph, where the Gemara had discussed the case. It was in the middle of discussing the two members of Shmuel and the discussion of Rabbi Yochanan. The Gemara had asked the question against Shmuel. Shmuel had told us that any time that that a chatas is going to be mesa, Pesach is going to be brought as a shlamim in those 5 cases, or 4, because you don't have a Pesach which is a male. You would end up with you don't have a Pesach which is a female. You would end up with a Pesach that is brought as a shlamim, and that was clause number 1 of Shmuel. Clause number 2, or statement number 2 of Shmuel, is anytime that a chatas would be left to roam until it develops a mum, with a Pesach, it would also be left until it develops a mum. And then we asked the question, according to Shmuel, that how would you end up with a case of a lost korban according to Rebbe? That was the statement that we were working, because we held that Shmuel holds according to Rebbe. And we had said that you're going to end up in a sticky situation here, because according to Rebbe, any time that you have a lost korban, it's going to a lost chatas, it's going to die. But with regards to a korban Pesach, it can't be considered lost until after chatzos, and after chatzos, we know that it's going to meaning after chatzos, according to Shmuel, is impossible to compare to the lost case of a chatas for Rebbe, because according to Shmuel, chatzos is the cutoff point. Says the Gemara, 3 lines from the bottom of Tzadi Zayin Amud Aleph. Kodem chatzos lav avadu. Before chatzos, it's not lost yet. Says the Gemara, K'de Rava, as Rava told us, Da'amar Rava, Avedis Laila Lav Shma Aveda. A lost animal and a lost korban Pesach at night is not called an Aveda, because the time for the offering of the korban hasn't arrived. Says the Gemara, and this was the kasha we left off with. According to Rebbe, how would you ever have a case of Roya? Meaning, the first case of Shmuel, of any time that you have a chatas which is mesa, you can have a Pesach which is a shlamim, that works. We can say that goes according to the opinion of Rebbe, me'achuz, that works beautifully. But the second clause, the second din of Shmuel, that any time that you have a chatas that is Roya, you're going to have a Pesach that's Roya, you don't have any parallels between them, because you're never going to have a Pesach that is Roya in the same situation that you have a chatas that's going to be Roya, because the time that they would be considered lost are 2 separate times. Says the Gemara, top of Tzadi Zainam base, Kid Rabbi Oshia. This works in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Oshia. Rabbi Oshia told us, what happens if a person has 2 animals that they decided, I'm going to have this as my korban chatas, and this as my backup korban chatas? And then you showed up, you brought one of them as a korban. So what happens to the other one? Miskaper be'achas mehem, you would get kapara with one of them, and the other one would be left to roam around until it develops a mum, and then you would sell it, and you would be able to buy another korban with it. Meaning it's not going to be put to death, and that would be the case of Raya, according to Rebbe. Rashi here points out that you have an immediate question to ask, which is, we are asking, where would you have a case of avud? Meaning, how are you going to have a case of avuda, according to Rebbe? This is not a case of avuda. You know exactly where the animal is. It's standing right next to you, next to the one that you're just offering. But, says Rashi, we're not going to get to that question, because we have another question I'm going to ask first. And once we've asked that question, the whole statement of Rabbi Yosha is going to be rendered inapplicable to the situation. We're never going to get to the question of avuda. The next question is, Veha ilu bePesach, if this would actually happen with a Pesach, that you would select 2 animals to be there for your korban Pesach, and one of them you would bring, and the other one is standing right there. Ki hai gavna, in that case, says the Gemara, that would be for sure brought as a shlamim, because that would be called a Moser HaPesach. It wouldn't be called an avuda. It's not lost. That would be called a Moser HaPesach. That would be an animal that you intended to bring as a Korban Pesach, and you didn't bring it as a Korban Pesach for whatever reason, because you had another one you brought it as a Korban Pesach. You made a mistake, right? You have two animals, and one of them was brought as a Korban Pesach. The other one was not, but it could have been. There's nothing wrong with it. That's called Moser HaPesach. Says the Gemara, Ela Shmuel Rabbi Shimon Sfirale. Shmuel doesn't hold like Rabbi. Shmuel holds like Rabbi Shimon. Shmuel is going to hold like Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Shimon says the Amar Chamish Chatos Mesas. Who holds of this din of 5 chatos that die? That din, if in any situation that in any of these 5 situations that a chatos is going to die, the Pesach is going to be brought as a shlamim. But Shmuel also spoke about Raya. But Rabbi Shimon doesn't discuss Raya at all. He doesn't believe that there is a case of Raya at all. He doesn't have the case of Raya. That doesn't exist for Rabbi Shimon. Says the Gemara, yeah. Shmuel also never spoke about Raya. That was a mistake. That was a typo. We had 2 dinim of Shmuel. One of them was accurate. The other one was completely inaccurate. Meaning Shmuel never spoke about the case of any time that Chatos is going to be Raya, Pesach is going to be Raya. He didn't say that. It says the Gemara, what did he say? Anytime that you have a Chatos that's going to die, that's where the Pesach is going to be brought to Shlamim. And if that's the case, then what exactly did Shmuel teach us? Okay, fine. It works well. He didn't say the second thing. He only said the first thing. But if that's the case, then Shmuel is just repeating exactly what the Mishnah says. Meaning, that is what the Mishnah had taught us. Says Rashi, Shmuel, what is Shmuel teaching us? Came in the Chol Avudim Bechatas Mason. Since anytime that you have an avud of a chatas, it's going to die. Also Shmuel, and Shmuel comes along, remember, to teach us that anything that's lost by Pesach that you found is going to be brought to the Shlamim. Mas Nisani, that's exactly what our Mishnah taught us. HaPesach shenimsa achar shchita. That's the case of a Pesach that is found after the shchita. And we explained that it's after chatzos. After chatzos. So Achar Zman Shchita Yikrav, Amakasavar Ha'avid B'chatzos Yikrav. Meaning that which is lost at the time of Chatzos is going to be brought as a Shlamim. Meaning Shmuel hasn't taught us anything. Says the word, no, he has. Lafukim to Rabbi Yochanan. He disagrees with Rabbi Yochanan. The Omar who says Eina Pesach Har Shlamim, the Pesach is never going to be brought as a Shlamim Ela Shenimsa Achar Shchita. Unless the original one was found after the Shchita of the replacement Korban Pesach. I mean, you lost one, you picked another one, and then you found the first one after Shchita. Aval Kodim Shchita, but if it was before Shchita, then it would not be brought as a Shlamim. I'm a Shchita cover, which means that Rabbi Yochanan is of the opinion that Shchita is the cutoff point. Shchita is the cutoff point that would render the found animal afterwards as a duchuya, as a rejected karban, and that's when it wouldn't be able to be brought as a shlamim. Kamash malan, therefore Shmuel is coming to teach us chatzos kava. Chatzos is the cutoff. That as long as you found it before chatzos, then it would be able to be brought as a shlamim. But if it was after chatzos, then it's called a rejected karban. Says the Gemara Lishna Achrina, we have another version of Shmuel, version number 2 of Shmuel. Any time that you have a Pesach that is lost, and it was found after Chatzos, Kodem Shchita, before Shchita, Yikrav Shlamim. That's when it should be brought as a Shlamim. And then, says the Gemara, the version number 2 of Shmuel, Shmuel Karabasfir, and Shmuel holds like Rabba against Rabbi Zera, Da'amar Shchita Kava. And Shmuel holds like Rabba, who's going to say that Shchita is going to be the kaveh, that Shchita is going to be the time of the cutoff, not Chatzos. V'ha midika'amar Rabbi Yochanan, but doesn't Rabbi Yochanan say about this, Ein HaPesach Karev Shlamim, Ela Shinim Zachar Shchita, that the Pesach is not going to be brought to Shlamim unless it is found. Unless it is found after Shchita, meaning if it was there during Shchita, then it's going to be a Dechuya. Aval koydem shchita, but it was found before shchita, loy, it would not be brought as a shlamim. Alma, that implies shchita kava. That shchita is the thing that is kaveh, according to Rabbi Yochanan. Michlal, the Shmuel savar chatzos kava. It comes out that Shmuel is going to hold that it's not shchita that's kaveh, chatzos is going to be kaveh. Says the Gemara, no. What do you mean chatzos is going to be kaveh? That's true. Ela Shmuel karebi svirle. Shmuel holds like Rabbi the Amar avuda lemisa asla. That he holds that an animal that was lost. An animal that was lost is going to be put to. I mean, it's going to be left to die. It's going to be left to die, which is the argument that we said for the first edition of Shmuel. Says the Gemara, "Vaha kol avudim leRebbi mesim," and we hold. Rebbe tells us that all the avudim, all lost animals are going to die, are going to be left to die. But with regards to Pesach, if it was lost before Chatzos, and it was also found before Chatzos, that would be a case of Roya. It's not a case of Amud, which is the question that we asked at the top of the Amud at the beginning of today's Amud. Says the Gemara, the same as we answered. No, because he holds that before Chatzos is not called lost. So the kasavar, and he holds that chatzos is the kaveh, the chatzos is kava, and that's how he's going to hold. Which comes out that both listeners of Shmuel roll out to the same conclusion, which is that Shmuel is of the opinion that chatzos is kaveh. If you found the animal, if you lost the animal at any point in time, but you found it before chatzos, and then you have two animals, and one of them is brought as a Pesach, and the other one is not, that animal that is not is going to be called a Pesach Dachui, and that Pesach Dachui cannot be brought as a Korban Shlam. It has been rejected because it's there. It could be a Pesach. It's rejected as a Pesach. That would be a case of Roya Ad that would be a case of Misa. According to Rabbi Yochanan, according to Shmuel, and according to Rabbi Yochanan, that cutoff point would not be at the point of Chatzos, it would be at the point of Shchitas HaPesach. Okay. And then the Mishnah says as follows: Hamafshish nekeva lepischa. If a person separated a nekeva, a female animal, to be his Korban Pesach, it needs to be a male. Or Zachar ben Shtei Shanim, or he made a Zachar that was 2 years old, it was too old to be a Korban Pesach. He made that into a Korban Pesach. Yira Achi, in that case, it has to roam until it develops a mum, Vayimacher, and it's going to be sold, Vayiblo Davan Nedava, and its money is then going to be given over as a Nedava, L'Shlamim, to be used as a Shlamim. Turning over into Tzadik Chesam and Aleph, Hamafresh Pischai. The person separated the Pesach of a mace and it died, Lo Yive'enu B'nai Achrav. His son is not allowed to bring that after him, L'Shem Pesach as a Pesach, Ela L'Shem Shlamim, he can only bring it as a Shlamim. And Be'ez Hashem Yisbarach, we will continue tomorrow with Tzadik Ches Amud Aleph, which Be'ez Hashem, we are going to discuss that Gemara, and we are almost running out to the end of the parak and the beginning of Arvei Pesachim, which will be our final parak on Maseches Pesachim. Looking forward, Be'ez Hashem, to finish off this parak on Shabbos and then starting on Sunday with the next parak. Have a wonderful day.